To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4, to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens in 4 Sundays.
So hard they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets a crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.
Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall, and I got the man who just broke the paintball internet, Archie Montemayor, here to have a discussion about his move actually back to San Diego Dynasty. There's some history here. But yeah, making the big move from San Antonio X Factor to San Diego Dynasty. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation here. Also, mark your calendars for December 21st. First episode of 4 Sundays is going to be going down that day. So yeah, man, let's jump into it here, Archie. A little bit of a shocker for a lot of people. I got a decent amount of people texting me. I can only imagine how many people were texting you going like, is this real? Like question mark. Totally didn't see this coming. You know, surprise face, head exploding emoji. So yeah, man, let's just jump into it. You are heading back to San Diego Dynasty. You played with that team in 2009 and 2009 to 2010. So that was a long time ago. So yeah, I mean, where do you want to start this? I think my first question that everyone's probably asking is like, and I, having known you for so long and seen your career this entire time, I have my own thoughts, obviously, of why I think you're making this move. But obviously, I got to ask you what everyone's thinking is, why the move to Dynasty?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm sure everybody's wrong. I mean, because like to me, my only guess for what people might assume is just because they're, you know, on top, you know, and that's not at all. That's not it at all. You know, it's kind of one of those tough things, man, because when you talk about like my career with X Factor, and to be quite honest, you know, it's as shocking to everybody as it is for me. You know, I did not envision ever not playing with X Factor. I mean, as you're well aware, and some maybe not other people are as aware about it as like myself, but like, you know, X Factor is a team that I've had like such an immense amount of influence and effort into building, and you know, like Ryan, myself, and Alex have all quite literally built that team from, you know, brought it from nothing to what it is now, which is like one of the most consistent teams in the world. You know, certainly a contender every single year in, year out. And, you know, one of the most dangerous teams of our time. And it's such a hard thing to do. I mean, like I look at what teams are trying to do, and essentially I would argue that every single team is trying to do what Dynasty has done and what we've done outside of like having a big time budget man behind their squad, which most teams just don't have that. So you've got, you know, when you think about like a self-funded team or a team coming up the ranks and not just being a pro team that's paid salaries to perform, the two best instances of that are Dynasty and X Factor. And it's not even close after that, you know? And so it's just, I imagine that X Factor is a team that everybody should look up to because of what we've done over that, you know, 15 years of time and how hard it really is to do it, you know? And certainly when you're talking about still having a main core that's based around a centered location and, you know, just being that consistent, it's incredibly difficult to do. I don't think people really honestly even understand how hard it is to build a program like that. And, you know, that comes from a lot of blood, sweat, tears, a lot of really great effort from a lot of talented individuals, not just myself or Ryan or Alex. There's a lot of intangibles that go into it. And then there's straight up just a lot of nerve-wracking time consumption that happens between coach, myself, and Alex on how best to steer the team. And you know, again, like I feel like I explained that for some length of time, but that's how much of my life went into that team, you know, and I don't take it for granted at all. And I'm quite literally so proud and honored and grateful for that situation, you know, because it's certainly changed my life and, you know, improved the way I do things in every aspect. And so, you know, to be here now, not being a part of that team, it's like, to put it there's no other way to put it other than it's completely shocking. It's groundbreaking for me, you know? But at the same time, it was something that it's been on my mind for a few seasons now, and I've stayed for reasons that I thought were good. But at the same time, like when I'm no longer able to really enjoy the game in the way in which I want to, and when I feel like maybe I don't, you know, it's tricky, dude. You know, it's just tough. But long story short, I just was ready for something different. So much so to the point where I was seriously considering retiring. And then it wasn't until I gave that a lot more thought and some real consideration that I kind of realized I wasn't quite ready to retire yet. You know, I just was ready for a change. And, you know, when I thought about that, it was real simple for me to think about which team I'd prefer to play with. And that was, you know, a team that I think is very mature, is very forward thinking, a team in which I really enjoy pretty much every character on the team as a friend, outside of the field, on the field. There's an immense amount of respect and adoration even. And I have also, you know, thankfully in Europe a few seasons ago, I got to play with, you know, 3 of the guys on the team currently. And you know, it was nothing short of a blessing. And actually it's kind of interesting, but like that experience with the Golden State Kings, playing with Ryan and Kyle and all those guys, Marcelo, Blake, you know, Johnny and Kyle Spica, but it really gave me a totally outside in perspective on the inner workings of a team dynamic and what I really believed a team should be, you know, and it, you know, basically pointed out the flaws within our own system. And I started to see that, you know, there was things that I would have liked to have really changed within our organization. And don't get me wrong, like it wasn't for a lack of effort, but you know, sometimes it's just easier to move forward versus changing up an entire system that obviously has been working, you know? So I knew I kind of wanted to play with a set group of guys, and it was kind of a no-brainer. And thankfully they were, you know, willing to kind of throw me into the fold. So I'm just genuinely super excited about this coming year. I really can't say that I've been this excited in a long time. And yeah, I'm just, and again, like, to me, results are great and everything, but like, I don't know, I guess I'm at the stage of my life where I'm really looking forward to being around kind of I don't know. I'm looking forward to being around all those guys once again.
You're 35 years old. You've done literally everything in this game you possibly could do. You've won all the awards you ever could want to win, to put on your shelf, to prove to yourself and others that, you were here, that you mattered, and that you deserve to be one of the greats forever. How much of this decision kind of circles around the fact that we don't really know how much time we get to do anything, and that you, at one point in time, before you kind of had to get into the bureaucracy and the nuts and bolts of being a, dominant presence and a leader on a team, and having to constantly, this player that and that player this, and we got it, just all the nuts and bolts of like being one of the main dudes on a pro team. And anyone that's been there knows what I'm talking about. And, how much of this is, because I know you're a guy that's about, stories, and how much and passion, and how much of this is about, like, look, paintball, you've given so much to the game because you drew so much from it. So you gave a lot to it. It gave you a lot back. And I'm just wondering how much of this is like the next Everest. It's like, okay, well, like, there's a badass movie that's on Netflix right now. I think it's called 14 Peaks, 7 Peaks. I've literally just started watching this last night. My kid. Yeah. Anyway, it's a longer story, but I was falling asleep, but I was like, this is an amazing story. And it just, and this guy is doing these insanely difficult things because he wants to put Nepalese climbing on the map and prove to the world, and so you kind of did all these things, or you put Texas paintball on the map, you put Archie Montemayor yourself on the map, you helped paintball the game itself by being entertaining and, one of the greats, blah, 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 travel the world. Now it's like, all right, well, what's the next story, man? Like, I'm not gonna get to do this forever. When you're big Arch, like with your kids, and you get to look back on this. I'm just wondering, knowing you and your story and like how it all has gone down, I'm just wondering how much of this is about that story that you tell yourself when it's all said and done. Because shit, man, that's all you have. It's like, well, that's all you got. I know you're not doing it for money, because you could have made money playing for someone else. You can make more money by not playing paintball.
No, for sure, 100%. And I am doing that, So no, it's definitely not about the money, and it's honestly, I wouldn't even say it's about the story either. It's just really, it's the same reason everybody else enjoys this game. Like, for some reason, we all really enjoy the act of getting out there and playing, and I was kind of ready to turn the page and dive into something else, and like, honestly, I really do intend to make my mark in another realm, not paintball related, in the next year or two. I really do intend to. And even if I don't, I'm okay with that too, but like, I relish in the practice of doing things and understanding things better. And that's what I intend to do with whenever I decide to stop playing paintball. I intend to do that for the rest of my life until I stop taking breaths, and I mean that, like, whether it's golf or another hobby or, any kind of anything really, I intend to understand things better until I'm no longer here, and I've obviously put an insane level of effort into understanding the way paintball or high level paintball is played. I definitely think I've, shown people, a lot of people, a side of things that can either benefit themselves, certainly on the paintball field, and hopefully they can find ways to transcend those things into their normal everyday lives to make their lives better as well. And I want to keep doing that. And I want to hopefully, make more of a mark in other spaces, but, for me at this point in my life, I don't need to prove anything to anybody, like and honestly, I was never even about that anyways. All I really wanted to do was be the best that I could be. And then into that practice, I started to realize that I could be one of the best ever. And that's fucking cool. But like, you know, ultimately, like, it's just hearsay and talk. Like, people don't actually understand that well, you know. But what I can say is that my peers respect me. You know, my peers appreciate, you know, what I can do on the paintball field. And to me, like, that's really all you could ever ask for. You know, whether or not I won any MVPs or the ones I won, like, I've got the respect of my peers, and that's what really, you know, to me, it's important and it matters. But, you know, for the most part, like, the fans out there, I love the fans, and I've got so many great relationships with so many fans out there. I mean, I get messages every single day. Obviously, recently I've gotten a lot, you know, and it's such a beautiful thing to be a part of, even on my side of it, because you don't realize how much you can touch people by doing things that you really enjoy doing, you know what I mean? And they enjoy as well. So it's really been a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful for this paintball experience that we've all really had. And the people I've met, you know, you, Darren, all the guys in this sport, and all the, you know, countless number of really influential and strong-minded people I've met as a result of this game, you know. So I'm really happy about that. And ultimately, this change is just about, you know, clearing up some space in my mind and really just trying to enjoy it more than I have been, you know. And I love all the guys on my team, and I'm so grateful for all the memories and all the really great times, and even the shitty times, you know, because, like, that's what makes you, you know, who you are. That's what shows you what you can do, who you can be, and what you can do, you know, like. So, like, I'm just so grateful. And honestly, dude, we had such an incredible run. Like, people, I really don't even think people understand how massive of a run, how insurmountable the odds are stacked against you, and how good of a run we had. And honestly, I couldn't feel better about the state of the team now, me leaving. I really couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, just a few months ago, you know, we got our asses handed to us on Sunday morning in Philly by Infamous. And after that event, dude, it's tough, man. It's really tough. And you're looking around, and, you know, you're wondering, man, how do you come back from this? This is the worst finish we've had in a decade, maybe, you know, and we've got guys injured, and, you know, it's, you know, the team's just down, you know, really tough position, you know, and we found a way to figure things out and make back-to-back finals appearances, you know. And, you know, again, we knocked out some really great teams in both of those events. And again, we had a 1-point game with Dynasty 2 years in a row now at the World Cup. It's like, you know, I feel super good with where the team is, where I left them, and they've got all the opportunity in the world to do anything, you know. They don't need me, you know. They never have. You know, I was just there along for the ride and doing my best, just like everybody else. And, you know, so thankfully, you know, I think X Factor is always going to be a contender. I hope that that's where I've left the team. And if they're, you know, if they don't contend at an event or two, that doesn't mean anything. All that is an opportunity for them to lick their wounds, figure out what they've got to do to move forward, and do just that.
I think that the big thing to keep in mind here is that, I don't know, man, I feel like everyone sees the immediacy of the moment and thinks that that's forever sometimes. And then, like, the older you get and the more you kind of work through things and the more life you live, times you've been hurt, times you've hurt others, whatever it may be, and you kind of realize, like, dude, this is all impermanent. It's all impermanent. So, you know, appreciating what you have when you have it is kind of like the magic ticket for all of humanity, and the thing that philosophers have spoken on, you know, since we started writing in clay tablets millennia ago. But I think that, you know, I think that sometimes people look at, you know, and this happens in regular pro sports where dudes are getting paid millions and millions of dollars, you know, like, things just, like, you give all you can give. Like, one of my favorite sayings is, all we can do is the best we can do with what we have in that moment that we have those things, you know. And it's like, that's all of life. And so when you're
Yeah.
when you are locked in, and even if you are, the Archie Montemayor of Dynasty, or the Oliver Lang of, of Dynasty, or X Factor, or All-Americans, Ironman, all these teams throughout the years, there's been huge climactic moves of guys going on these different adventures. And so now, like, when I heard that, and I was like, wow, that's a big change. That's what I thought. I wasn't completely shocked. I was like, wow, that's a big change. And then I thought to myself, all right, well, good for everyone involved, because this is going to cause X Factor to evolve. They have no chance, no other choice but to evolve.
Exactly.
So no choice. They have no choice but to evolve. And thus is every goddamn moment of your life, and yes, some things do last longer than others. But it's like I remember, all the teams that I was on, and now all these teams I've seen come and go, and all these players move to different squads. But I thought, when I heard that, I'm like, all right, well, obviously good for Dynasty and good for Archie, because, now he gets to go on this new mental adventure that will keep, it's like, having things be novel and new keeps your mind young, because you're constantly processing new things. That's one of the reasons why they say that time processes, it's like, it's just a savage fact of life, but the older you get, the faster time goes. And the reason why is routine. Routine is what makes time go fast, because you wake up, you go do the same shit, same day you did it, or same thing you did the day before, the same thing you're going to do the next day. You go to the same places with the same people. And the next thing you know, 10 years goes by, and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe 10 years just went by. When you're young, everything's new. You're a baby, you're figuring things out. Like, every texture and sound and color is new. You go to school, every year is a different new, we're progressing, we're tearing up. Now I got to get a job, meet people, blah, blah, blah. And all this novelty and all that new stuff, makes you, these new things that you're processing makes time go slower. But so when you start doing the same shit over and over again, it just makes time speed up. And, so I just thought, this is going to be cool for Archie. It's going to be really good for Dynasty. And I think in the long run, it will definitely be really good for X Factor, because now, it's like, it's always next man up. Because I remember, I had a good talk with Alex, who I love, you're the owner of your team, Alex Martinez.
Yeah, of course.
And he was like, look, dude, we talked about a lot of things. And he was, but one of the things he said, for public consumption, because not everything's for public consumption, but he was like, look, he's like, X Factor will exist. He's like, I love this team. This team is going to continue to exist. I don't know how much longer I can play it, because I've been playing, paintball for a long ass time and I'm getting old. He's like, but the team will exist. So, and I think that, him as a leader, Ryan as a leader, and then you as a leader at the time, but it's, it's when you take out a you from the field, now it's okay. It's now, again, next man up, next person up. What are they going to do? How are they going to act in that situation? And I think it's a big opportunity for everyone on that squad right now. And I think Ryan is an amazing coach / general manager, whatever you want to call him, depending on the day. And I think X Factor's in really good hands. And yeah, I mean, of course, when you lose a player of your caliber, yeah, it is going to hurt you on the field. But sometimes that can be a really good thing, and that's just how sports work. So, I mean, I guess my next question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I wonder if, when I think of like the last couple of seasons on our team, I do kind of wonder. And I know I know what I bring to the field, and I know what I bring to the pit, and I understand what I bring to the game planning and what we're deciding to do as a team, strategy wise. But at the same time, like, I do wonder if maybe me not being there is going to force other guys to develop more, and it's really interesting, because I had a conversation about this exact thing years ago with a really, potent individual that we all know and love, Oliver Lang. And, it's funny because his influence and his understanding is so far and so deep, and even understanding the way things will happen in years' time, because he's been there and he's seen it and he lived it, and, and he even influenced so much of it, and It's one of those things, but by me being there sometimes to, fix a problem on the field, right? I'm not giving other guys the opportunity to fix that problem. And maybe, there's a chance that, me not being there will give other guys more opportunities to do more and understand better and learn in different ways. And so, I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case. I really wouldn't be shocked if a lot of those guys end up moving and transcending their game. And I sure hope they do.
I just think to me, that's a no brainer. It's the caliber of players that X Factor has brought to bear out there that you currently have on that roster. I just think that, just look how good Meter's gotten, and Jesse, and obviously, we had the mainstays. We got the Billy's doing what he does, and all these different legends. And everyone's and these. But I'm really interested to see these next guys up and see what happens with them, and then also to see, look at Ryan Greenspan in his later part of his career, he keeps getting better. Obviously he's been dealing with some injuries, but a World Cup performance at 2021 at 40 years old was absolutely nasty. And it's so when I look at like a Jesse, or I look at a Billy, or I look at a Meter, I'm like, man, I don't know how good these guys can actually get, because if they want to keep doing it, they still have the body to do it. If their mind,
there's no limit for them
on tap.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then some of the new guys. So I think before we kind of move on, because I would like to get your thoughts on kind of the state of the top level of the game with some of these teams, and just kind of how things are going to go down in 2022. I feel I would be remiss if I didn't ask you those questions when I get you in a seat.
Yeah.
And people are listening, because it's like we're a couple weeks out from Christmas, where everyone's processing and now moving towards the next battle that will be confronting us. They're building up their ranks, preparing, planning, training, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I don't know if, obviously, I think that we got to get your thoughts on Impact. We got to get your thoughts on Heat and just the top tier of the Damage, some of these other teams. But before we do that, because you are leaving X Factor, you more than anyone has a unique look into that team. So I got to ask you, like we have been speaking on, I believe that team still, even without you, is still going to be very strong. So if we could kind of just go through some of the guys on that team, and kind of you tell me what your thoughts are on them. I can't get anyone on planet Earth other than, maybe Ryan or, a couple other guys on that team, Colt. But, so let's start with Colt. Is Colt going to be playing in 2022? What are your thoughts?
So
because it's just
he intends to. I think, and honestly, the number one kind of question mark, in my opinion, with X Factor is just whether or not they're going to have everybody at every event. Rainey is dealing with some injuries that have been, it's definitely been hit or miss for him. Not in the sense of him playing, but whether or not he can play and whether or not he's willing to play or be able to practice. TJ's knee situation has been, again, we picked him up 2 years ago, and he's really only played 1 or 2 tournaments, very small amount of reps, because it seems to be kind of still there lingering around. And then on top of that, Colt, I know Colt wants to play, but at the same time, depending on what happens with, the world, if you will, there are reasons why Colt might decide not to go to an event that we can't really predict, so it's one of those things, so, there's 3 guys right there that are all, top level players that you're not quite sure on. And then when you're trying to build out your roster, and again, those you don't know for sure if 3 guys are playing or not, that's what makes it tough, and that, in my opinion, is the hardest thing. That's going to be the hardest thing to overcome for X Factor, in my opinion, at this point, because if you're counting Colt, TJ, and Rainey, they've got 11 guys, and that's already a lot of guys. But if you take those 3 away, now you're shorter. But on top of that, you don't have Rainey, you don't have TJ, you don't have Colt. That's a pretty big hit, So, but that being said, I know all those guys all intend to play. It'll just be, one of those things where, and unfortunately, I'm sure that's going through Ryan's head quite a bit. Well, I know it is, it's definitely on his mind, because it's tough to game plan around the uncertainty. But as far as
Yeah.
that, like everybody else on the team it's really great. I mean, Billy is playing the best paintball he's ever played. And that's like, honestly, I mean, everybody knows how great Billy is, but like what people don't realize is how much better he is than he used to be. And he used to be good. So like, I don't even think he gets enough credit for being as awesome as, he's such a good player. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's insanely good. And like, you know, so I'm, yeah, exactly. Like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, he definitely, in my opinion, it's not even close to who the best snake player of the year was. You know, like, and sure, X Factor didn't win, but we made more finals than everybody except for Dynasty and Impact, or I guess we made the same amount of finals as Dynasty and Impact. We didn't win, but like, my opinion, Billy, for a number one snake guy, is by far the most consistent top end snake player out there. I mean, there were guys that had bad events that were elite snake guys, and Billy played solid the entire year. He's played solid for years on that side, you know?
Well, it's you know, Billy's the snake guy. He's not playing any other position. You know where he's going to go. So you have a couple of different options of positions that he could go on that side to shoot that lane. And if you don't shoot him, like, there's a really good chance Billy's going to go off, and you better contain him. It's, you know, like Dynasty against you guys in World Cup in finals of 2020. But because everyone knows where he's going, and he's probably one of the most, like, other than a Chad George, like, super scoutable elite guy, because he's going to one side of the field. Like, when you play, we don't necessarily know. There's a decent chance you could be going to the D side, maybe snake side. We don't really know. Maybe you go up the middle. It's possible. You do it every now and then. Billy's going to be playing the snake side. Just the question is, can you shoot him? Because if you can't shoot him, he's probably going to be on your side of the field, decimating you guys. And yeah, I agree with you that, I mean, I do get a vote on this, and he's definitely, it's a conversation, obviously, but you can make a very easy, strong case for Billy Bernaccia as the best attacker on the snake side. Because
and I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend of mine. Like, I've seen it, dude. You know what I mean? I've been around him, and I've pushed him to try to totally round out his game. And honestly, again, I know a lot about high level paintball. I mean, it's not even a question, in my opinion, on that. Like, seriously. And then, you know, all the guys on X Factor, for the most part, everybody's playing really great. Like, a lot of guys are playing the best they've ever played. You know, Meter's playing awesome. Jesse's playing good. Cody's playing good. He's also hurt. Right. Rainey, like, he's hurt, but when he's playing, it's like he's playing like possessed almost, you know. It's kind of crazy to see. And Colt, again, also playing just super high level. So there's no weak spot on the team, period. You know, it's just, they just gotta keep going at it and keep finding the right, you know, finding the answers.
Yeah, the injuries and who can be healthy and when is going to be the very key question and the difficult thing for them to deal with. Because like you said, that's a lot of guys. So, I mean, okay, like 11 guys, everyone's healthy. That's a lot of guys to have.
Yeah, seriously. Like, how do you get reps?
Yeah. But you are going to a team that has been picking up some dudes. Obviously, it's a little bit different situation for you than, say, one of the younger guys coming on the team trying to, you know, earn those reps. But Dynasty is, if everyone is healthy, but the Dynasty is another one of those, you know, it's kind of like, they call that like the glass cannon, right? It goes boom, man, and it can kill you. It gets a real big boom, but it can be made out of glass, and you never know when it's going to break, even though so with Dynasty, if everyone's healthy, which it apparently, I mean, I just saw Ryan, his back's feeling good. Dalton seems to be tracking to be totally okay. Marcelo's been training. He's looking really good. Everyone's looking healthy. So that's ideal. But Dynasty is also going to be stacked up this year with guys trying to earn the playing time. But I think that's also, if we could kind of talk about that, like having a deep team. So look at Heat, look at Impact. Fighting for playing time, even when you are best of the best, is not necessarily a bad thing. So kind of talk to me about Dynasty's new roster that we're going to be seeing here in 2022, because, you know, with the addition of, again, everyone healthy, picking you up. So that's, you know, 2 new bodies coming in, and then having everybody healthy. I mean, that, I think you guys will be at, I mean, what do you guys be at? 10, 11 potentially?
Yeah, I think that's what, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure it's close to, it's 10 or 11. I'm pretty sure it's just 10, but I could be wrong.
Depending on who's who.
But like, and again, like, you know, you look at a team like Dynasty, like, obviously they don't need anything really, you know, and I think the beauty of like a team like that with so much experience, so many veterans, it's kind of like, you know, like my goal to the team is to try to bring an outside perspective and look and into kind of what ways can we do things better, you know, and like kind of really trying to do my best to help some of the younger guys on the team and help those guys grow and really kind of flower into who they may or may not become. Right. And also embrace, you know, playing with some of the masters of the all-time masters of the game, you know, and really lean into that and enjoy that and see if I can kind of do the same for guys that have been masters for forever. Cause you never know when, you know, you can be renewed or re-inspired or, you know, kind of have a new appreciation for anything. And that's kind of what I hope to do on the team is come in here and shake things up a little bit and throw my little flair in there and see what happens. And, you know, kind of hopefully boost everything around me in that organization. And I think it's easier to do that sometimes when it's a new face that people, you know, respect, you know? And so I'm hoping that that's going to be kind of just what happens. And I felt like that was a lot of the vibe when we were in Europe a couple seasons ago was, you know, we understood that we don't get to play with each other very often. So we're going to make that most of that. And, you know, obviously now I'm committed to, you know, a season or 2 or 3 or who knows how many, you know what I mean? But I'm looking forward to it quite a lot. And I'm hoping I can just come in there and boost everything.
Well, because you are versatile and you can play wherever, you can play in any of the positions on the field. But, you know, Dynasty does have a snake side that is, you know, with Alex and Mike. And then I don't know, where's Vasquez going to play? You know where he's going to play? Does he have like a defined role yet?
Yeah. And granted, I don't know, like I haven't met him before. So, you know, that'll be interesting, but I believe he's a snake guy. Like from what I've gathered so far on the intel, it's like the intent is to train him to be an upper, you know, an elite snake guy. And obviously we all know that that's the hardest thing to do. So we're, you know, that I think, you know, he's a young guy, so he's got an infinite ceiling, you know, that it doesn't even exist yet. So, but we're just going to try to get him experience, try to help him understand and bring him up to the level which he needs to be at and see kind of where he finds his wings and blossoms. And obviously like to define what he's going to do at this point, like would be silly because he basically has a free canvas, you know, he can do anything he wants to do, you know, and I really
that is true. That's true. That is very true. And you're not wrong. But I think I just had this conversation with Marcelo too, because Marcelo said a similar thing. And I'm like, yeah, you are definitely right. But that's like a Marcelo Margot or Archie Montemayor saying like, hey, bro, this is just play jazz with this, you know, just play jazz with it and just be, you know, be amazing and be yourself and work your ass off. Yeah. But you have to be really good. Anyway, all these things. And like, but you could, yeah, you want to be D side, snake side, middle, whatever. That's totally fine. But at the same time, it's also very true that like the way to get on a team, like Dynasty picked up Mike Urena to play the 1 in the snake. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like that. I mean, it's like, and it's kind of, you know, when the shortstop comes to you and they're like, hey, dude, I know I'm the most athletic guy on the team, but I really think the right field is a spot for me, bro. Or like first base. My dad was a first baseman and I want to play first base. It's like, shut the fuck up. You're going to play. Yeah. You're playing shortstop. You know how hard it is to play shortstop, dude? It's like, oh, Mikey, I don't want Mike Urena to come to me and be like, you know what? I listened to the show with Matty and Archie, and he was like blank slate for Vasquez. So I'm thinking I want to play Yosha's spot. I feel like I'm a 3 deep in my heart, and like I just need to play back there and shoot a body on the break, and then I'm valuable. I can flood up the field. You know, I could work with Archie over here.
No, I definitely get what you're saying. Like, you know, it's hard to not argue that if he wants to, you know, like really earn the most success, at least early on, he's going to learn how to get in that snake and shoot people, you know? But, you know, again, I'm hoping we can get him to be a high caliber, well-rounded player, even if he's going to the snake, you know, because that's what it takes to be an elite level snake guy.
For sure. And then where do you kind of see, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm Skinny Kevin, I'm Kevin Brettauer, I get Archie. and that's cool. They get Vasquez. I think it's Damian Vasquez, and then the other kid that Marcelo wants to bring on. I keep forgetting his damn name. I should write this down, but he's not quite on the team yet. He's got a very charismatic last name. He's like a project for Marcelo. But to be honest, if I'm, again, he's not. He's like on the practice squad. I don't know exactly what you guys are calling it, but it's somebody that Marcelo's been looking at and training with. Young kid. Yeah. But if I'm, if I'm skinny, I'm like, okay, we get Archie. Wow, this gives me so much to work with, because as a piece on the chessboard, where depending on the layout and how things shake out in the practices, he can, talk about playing jazz. Jesus, he can really get crazy with the notes of this game, because there's a lot now with Blake getting his versatiles. So with Blake playing he can play on the D side, and he can also play in the center, and to elite caliber there. Now Marcelo just stepped up and had a hell of a tournament on the D side as the one based on the layout. Absolutely. You get Dalton back. I mean, there's a reason why Dalton gets paid to play this game. That dude is masterful and first class when he's healthy. And that's why he's been on all these top teams and as a coveted, free agent all these different times. So there's just a lot of stuff there that, if depending on how everyone's playing, it's going to make it kind of one of those embarrassment of riches, but also it's going to be really tough for everyone else because that's a lot of different specific guys that have a chance to be playing at the level that we need paintball players to play at to go deep in tournaments, which is why Impact's so consistent, which is why Heat wins so many tournaments as they win. Heat's less consistent, but they're also pretty damn consistent. So it's like you get that many guys that are that good, and you get them that many looks, and you get somebody like a Dave or a Todd or a Skinny or, the brain trust on all those teams to kind of look at this field and be like, all right, well, so it's really good for the longevity of the team. So just before we kind of move on, last thoughts on the roster for Dynasty, the new squad?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I hadn't quite actually thought about it until you just said that, because, when you think about like how many super versatile guys that can like guys that are world-class back players in their own respect, but also at the same time are world-class front players. Like, not a lot of teams have more than one guy of that on their team. And granted, I would argue that Dynasty right now has 3 or 4, and
for sure.
that are world-class at aggression and being the masterful kind of game quarterback, and so that's definitely an interesting thought. And honestly, like, it might be cool because like maybe as a result of that, like, I might not play as much, just like I'm not, there's got Marcelo and Ryan and Blake and Dalton, it's like I don't probably have to play every point, pretty confident I don't actually.
But that also gives that gives the team the freedom to be fresh. Freedom to be fresh.
100%. And trust me, like, that's actually a thing that a lot of teams don't. Well, teams, I guess they understand it, but like, dude, being fresh it's nice. It's very nice, like, and unfortunately, I haven't really had the fortune to be really fresh on Sundays for most of my career, because I've had to play almost every point for most of my career, and again, that to me, being fresh is a luxury, because I just don't know what that's really about on a Sunday afternoon. Like, I'm used to being beat up when it comes by Sunday afternoon. You know what I mean? And that's just, well, why are you going to cry about spilt milk? This is what we have to deal with, and this is what we have to deal. But yeah, so that might be a fun part of having kind of that kind of roster where it's not maybe. Yeah, maybe I can get a little bit more breathing time.
So as far as the rest of the top of the league, like, I'm interested to see kind of, he hasn't made any changes other than picking up Todd as a coach in years. So I'm kind of interested to see if the 4th place finish. So they had a pretty solid year, 11th, 1st, 5th, 3rd. That's pretty damn good. Obviously, missing a Sunday is huge, but they seem to have no problems because they went right back and had redemption and they won the next tournament. And then a fifth, and then a place in the semifinals. So, I don't know. Do you think it's time for Heat to make moves, or do you think that Heat could still roll with that same roster? What do you think?
I mean, yeah.
You could argue it both ways.
Well, yeah, you could definitely argue it both ways. Like, dude, they have a great team. Obviously, they have enough guys that are like, it's like, to me, Heat, most of their team, like you look at, like, I would probably say that Chad is their most consistent kind of day in, day out. Oh, and Mishka are both really super consistent players. And like, obviously Chad being a snake one, it's kind of like Billy, where like, man, dude, that's really difficult to do. To be as consistent as Chad has been for years, like, it's like really tough, and then they've got Mishka, super consistent, but then they've got basically like 5 other guys that can play at an MVP level performance at any point in time. And basically what happens when they win tournaments is they get a couple of those guys just balling out, and like, they could always do that. They have the roster. They could always do that. So it's like, how are you? And again, to make their team much better it's like one of those things, like, it's like you kind of can't really make your team much better when you're that good, because it's just not, how do you do that? You can't, there's still a randomness to the game. There's still other guys out there. You can't always be on top of everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know that they could really improve their roster that much. They've got a bunch of really elite guys. They've got some super consistent guys, which is what you need on a team to really be like, to kind of set your place and give yourself those opportunities to win tournaments. And they've got everything they need. They've got a great coach. They've got, Tyler obviously been a great addition as well. But like, it's hard to say what they could do better, in my opinion. Like, it's hard to say. I think maybe a couple of guys on the team could be a little better individually, more consistent individually. But like, again, like I said, they've got so many guys that could literally be the best guy in the world on any given match,
Yeah, I don't think that, I agree with you. I don't think they definitely don't need to do anything. Which is why Randy has kept that team as solvent as it's been for all the years. I mean, they won 2 World Cups in a row. And, and I remember talking to Ryan Moorhead about this, and I brought this up multiple times, and I've talked to multiple Chad and both Chads about this, but Heat's like, we're built to win tournaments. We're going to blow out it occasionally. We're going to have our low finishes every now and then. Like, it's going to happen because, we shoot for the moon, and this team was built to win tournaments. We will win tournaments. That's what we do. And they have held tight to that promise since 2012. They have won a lot of tournaments, but they've been more consistent than they would let on up until basically COVID hit, and then once COVID hit, they took a couple nights, and it had been frustrating. And then that 11th, and then they, and they had got Todd in the meantime, but they don't need to do anything. It's, do they want, or do they feel, as we talked about, nothing stays the same forever. At some point, whenever it may be, tomorrow, 5 years from now, a change will happen to that squad. And what is it going to be? What's it going to look like? And how more is that going to make them relevant? I mean, and they have payroll, so they can afford to get people. But I do have to tip my hat to the leadership of that squad and how consistent they've kept that team, given all those guys jobs. And they've been very, that the ownership of that team and the leadership of that team has been very loyal for the most part to the guys they've had on that team for like the past 4 years.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, they've done, again, they've won events in every year for like, I don't know how far back, but long enough, you know what I mean? And that's really tough to do. And it's a testament to how good of a team and how good of an organization, how good of players they have on their squad. I mean, that's the truth. And again, like, I argue that their type of team is like really hard to, like, in my opinion, like what I'm explaining is guys that, like, sometimes you don't know when those guys are going to go off like the best player in the world in any given match. Like, it's hard for guys to do that at any moment, like, it's just not that easy of a thing. And they seem to have like a handful of guys that are capable of doing that, at will. So it's really difficult to do. Like, like I would always argue that, like, for me personally, consistency is everything, and like Chad or Billy or like my game, what I think is my strength is like, what you're going to get with me like 95% of the time. And like that, to me, I play around that consistency and I understand things to be that consistent. But, you know, if you've got like 3 guys that maybe 30% of the time they're going to play like the best player in the world for a match, well, if you got 3 of those guys, you know, and you only need one of those guys to win one match, like you can see how like that lends itself to like some really flash in the pan kind of events and good, you know, it can really boost a team. So it's really interesting. And again, like maybe on a team like X Factor, like you've got your kind of tried and true guys that are doing a lot. You know, we've got everybody's pitching in, obviously, but like, you know, it's not like one match in a tournament, you know, like one of our 6, 7, 8 guys going to go off and play like he's, you know, the best player in the world. And that's why what they've got is such an intangible thing. It's so really kind of odd to see it too, but it happens a lot for them. And so it's really cool. And again, if you're the coach or you're the, you know, strategy guy over there trying to figure out how do we make our team better, like, bro, good luck. I don't know how you do it, you know, to be honest.
Yeah. So I've got some other questions about some top teams, but I thought maybe just to throw a monkey wrench at you and change gears real quick to see what may come of the conversation. You've been around for a long time and you've seen how competitive this league is. Do you think it's ever been this competitive? And what are your thoughts on these up and coming squads, Levels, the Energy Elites, the ML Kings, you know, some of the guys down there that are starting to make some waves?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So like, I have two thoughts on this, and granted, like I'm probably playing a little bit of the devil's advocate as well, but like to me, I would say it's the most competitive the league's ever been, right? And it appears that way in the scoring, right? And you've got like, you know, new teams that are coming up and giving games and going on runs at events, which is always great to see. Like, who doesn't like seeing a lesser team come up and kind of punch some people in the face, right? Everybody loves that, and it's easy to understand why, right? And my hat's off to those, you know, those newer teams doing great. Like ML Kings, obviously they beat us at World Cup, and they went, you know, whatever. They made it to Sunday for, I think, the first time in a long time, or ever, maybe.
First time ever.
And, you know, yeah, okay. And then you've got NRG and LVL, obviously upsetting teams in the last several events, right? Now, when I play the devil's advocate, though, I look at the way the fields are laid out. And I honestly, and I also think about the way I have to play paintball nowadays, which is I very much have to intentionally dumb down my game because there's pillows everywhere on the field now, and you can't see anything. So naturally, when you can run behind a big pillow and dive into the 50 and come up and you've got backs, well, there's not as much skill involved to do that. So when you've got 2 teams and one's on paper way better and the other team, you know, isn't, they can just say, well, hey, look at all these big pillows. I'm just going to run there and I'm close now. And now this game of masters versus rookies is played out in a risk on a roll the dice kind of play, you know, and I do believe that influences a lot of the game right now. And I wish it didn't so much, but you know, it just is what it is. But I feel like there's a lot of strategy and a lot of skill that is left out of the game in lieu of making it more exciting to watch, you know. And, you know, that's not my decision to make. You know, that's Jason's decision or Tom's decision or somebody else that makes decision. I'm just a little puppet that plays. But
it's definitely Jason's. Because he's the one that designs the fields. But hey, if you want to tell, I'll tell you what, Jason hits me up all the time. And occasionally I'll be like, well, hey, here's what guys are saying, or here's what I think. But he's been doing a good job of making entertaining layouts that people do seem to enjoy to play. And I don't disagree with that. But he's also said, and maybe I don't know if he said this to you, but he says, look, I would love some input. So if you have input of how you would like a layout to be, and you could kind of gather the weight of the troops of people that think that, hey, let's make a layout like this, then, you know, like he said, he's been willing to be open to suggestions. So if you have suggestions of what you think a layout should be, you should hit up Jason.
Well, yeah. And don't get me wrong. I talked to Jason whatever, a few times a year. And honestly, like Jason's sharp as hell. You know what I mean? Like, this obviously. And he was a high level player in his own right because of that, So like, but I will say this, like, I don't, and granted, this is just my perspective or opinion, but like, I feel like people have said this many, 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 many times, and it doesn't seem to, it goes on deaf ears, is that why hasn't there been one event where they don't use all the bunkers? Like that's been spoken about so many times publicly by high level elite players, like I can't think of a reason why that hasn't at least been thrown into the ring yet, again, all I can say is because we don't make those decisions.
Because Dave Pando paid Jason Trojan so Level could have a chance at World Cup, man. Everyone knows. Come on, Archie. Shit, Jesus Christ. No, Pando, I'm just kidding. That was a flagrant lie. I made that up. Yeah. That's not what happened, but it's fun to say.
Yeah, and then for all I know, they do a layout where they take out the bunkers, and Level goes out there and stomps everybody and maybe wins. And then I won't have much to say. But it would be funny. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, that seems like a logical place to start. And now they added more bunkers this year, so it's like, okay, well, that's probably not going to happen. So again, it's just like we've got ideas, but at the same time, like, you don't want to put effort into something that you're just spinning your wheels on, and that's, like that's ultimately why I don't really spend much time at all thinking about what could be better about the league, because I just don't feel like it would really ever be taken seriously, so I just stick to playing, stick to trying to master what, circus show they're going to throw out there for us next time.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Well, I think we should add I was talking to some people today, 30 more bunkers for 2023. What do you think, dude? 30 more bunkers out there.
Yeah.
30 more bunkers, reincarnations, dude. It's going to be crazy.
Man, it would be interesting. Yeah, it's funny because, like, I don't know. To me, I think of like the paintball of old, or like 7-man, or honestly, like with the 10-man, like kind of renaissance that's going on now. It's just so much fun, and I do kind of wonder if there will be a big time major shift in the format, just because, like, I mean, and honestly, like most changes that the league makes over time, like it's not like we know these changes are better. It's all just doing it for the sake of doing it. It's not like there's a lot of foresight into knowing why this is better than the way it used to be. You know what I mean? And like at this point, like, why? I don't know. Like, I think it would be cool to play 7-man at a high level, or a different, just a different format even. Yeah, it'd be interesting. But you never know. I mean, they've talked about it before. It just never seems to happen. But like, again,
ball format.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone uses autoclockers. No face mask. Allow fighting.
Allow fighting. There you go. Yeah, I don't think that one's happening. Yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to Jason a little bit more. I always do enjoy having our conversations, and I understand he's got a tough job because you're trying to make a bunch of people happy, which is impossible. So, I just, the next time I talk to him, I'll chip in a little bit, whatever I think I can give to the situation, and kind of whatever happens will happen, and I'll just kind of whatever do what we got to do.
Look, I do appreciate you're always just down for the battle or whatever it may be, but I do think that you probably should talk to Tom and Jason. If there's certain things that you feel that should go a certain way, then they're always down to talk about things. It's like,
no, and that's the one thing I will say that I do appreciate about the league in general. Like, if I have something that's on my mind, like, and I reach out to whoever I want, like, I absolutely have a voice or have ears, like if I wanted to talk to Tom about something, like, and this is what I really do respect and love about Tom, because he's awesome. But like, if I said, yo, Tom, what's up? It's Archie. Like, can I pick your ear on something, or can I talk to you about something? He's like, yeah, cool. Right now, or here's when, and we'll knock that out, and same thing with Jason. If I reach out to him, I know for sure I've got his ears, You know what I mean? Because just like, you know, me as a player, I'm trying to do the best I can at, you know, whatever, everything. Jason, Tom, all those guys are all doing that for their respective position within the league, you know, and that's hard to, like, again, like, I appreciate the level in which they take it serious, you know? So yeah, I mean, that being said, I just personally don't put too much effort into thinking about the forefront or the foresight of the league and where it's going and, you know, what they're thinking about, because I just, you know, that's not my job.
100%. I do think though, like, it's this conversation, you and I could speak for hours about this, but having some sort of experiment, which we have before, and we will continue to do that. But having some sort of experimental format, you know, like the 10-man thing is just, anyone that's gone to those is so fast. It's just, I love it. It's so fascinating. It's so fun and fascinating. Are great combos. And then to have maybe some sort of, you know, exhibition in the future where it was like an X ball, but it was 7-man, that we did the same sort of treatment with, but it would just be more bunkers, more people. It'd be kind of cool. I would really enjoy that. Or, you know, something that we just kind of, you know, again, like we've been kind of talking about, playing jazz with things, knowing how what takes up the elements of this concept. Let's try to do some different things with this, because you never know what could happen. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah.
But before I let you go, though, I have to ask you about some of these other top teams. Just because,
for sure. I mean, I think we've got
2022.
Yeah, we've got Infamous and Impact, really. Yeah. I mean, Infamous is a great team. They're really well rounded at this point. Obviously, they, you know, we've been playing 10-man with them for a couple seasons now, and
I was gonna say, you know them very well.
Yeah, we know them really well, and it's really been cool, man. That's a fun group, man. Those guys are awesome. And just a lot of fun to be around, a lot of fun to play with. And they understand what paintball is really about. It's about having fun. You know what I mean? And like, usually when you're enjoying yourself, you tend to do better, you know, and that's really cool to see those guys like becoming way more consistent than, you know, maybe Infamous used to ever be. You know, like, they've had a solid couple of seasons at this point. And, you know, some finals appearance, and then, I mean, obviously we dominated the 10-man circuit, which in my, like, dude, that's hard to do. I don't even know that it's any easier than X-Ball, to be honest with you, because, like, the intangibles and the point system and the
players
flips, like,
there's a lot of good players out there.
Exactly. It's really difficult. Like, I would actually argue our run in the 10-mans is like harder to do than like making back-to-back finals in the NXL. Like, I really would, because, dude, it's tough to win those events, and then to go for a sweep, like, and win them all in one season. Like, that might never be done again. And certainly the league doesn't want us to do it again, because we can't even field the same roster, which that I feel like I should talk about, because it straight up sucks. You know, imagine playing with a bunch of guys that you're there to have fun with, and you go out there and you win everything, and then they just say, well, you know what? Y'all can't do that anymore. Sorry. You know, that sucks, because essentially what I can't do now is I can't play 10-man because of that, you know, or I can't play with the guys I want to play with, you know, and that sucks. Yeah. It says pro. Like, I don't know what pro means if you can't play with anybody.
I'm with you on this one, dude. I've had this discussion, and I'll tell you what, I've had this discussion with Tom, and it kills his soul a little bit, probably, to have to make that decision, because he held off the Europeans for years. Because for years, the Europeans were like, stop letting the Americans come over. And I'm apologize to anyone I'm about to offend right now, but this is just how it went down. But they were, you know, they were like, stop letting these American mercenaries come over and ruin our league over here. Not everyone, but that was kind of, you know, because that was how it worked. And I was one of the people that kind of started this, because, you know, Maggot from Joy Division brought us over and we won tournaments. Yeah. And then they were like, oh, that's possible. And then all of a sudden, here comes the influx of Americans. And Tom used to get just ear beatings from these people. They'd be like, look, you cannot let this happen. And he'd like, look, it's pro, and whoever shows up to play is who's going to play. And he used to be super, you know, frustrated that he would have to have these conversations. But over time, it was like, well, what do I do, man? Like, it's just, do we just let this, is this what's best for paintball? And I think that, you know, people beat Tom up a bunch about certain things, but I do think that he's constantly, because anytime I have these conversations with him and I'm on this side that we're arguing, I'm like, no, dude, this kills my paintball soul. that back in the day it was just pro and amateur, and it was if you show up, whoever you bring, and I'd go down.
That's how it was when I started too, man.
I bring out my soapbox, and I get on my soapbox, and I start pointing the finger and telling them that paintball is all about who's going to be the best. You got to show up with your 10 guys, your 7 guys, or 5 guys, and it doesn't matter who they are or what language they speak or what color they are or creed or gender. It's 5 people over there, and we used to always say, right? Hey, it's just 10 guys with guns. Oh, it's just 7 guys with guns. It's just that's what we used to talk about, right? When you're coming up the ranks and you're playing a better team, that's how you get motivated for that battle, right? It's not Archie Montemayor. It's just another dude with a gun. So I'm with you on that. But having had this conversation multiple times with Tom over the years, in his defense, to him, he'd be like, look, Matty, that's not what's best for the game. I understand that that's what's good for you, and that's what's good for the team that you play on, and that's good for your bank account, and that's good for all these guys that get to come over and live that crazy adventure. But that's good for this many people, but that's not good for this many people. And so to me, I have to fight for this many people, and that's what I'm trying to do. And he's like, as hard as it was for him to come to that, because he didn't do that for years. He was like, nope, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we do here. So he changed.
Yeah.
But
it's just interesting because I still have a hard time believing that logic, because here's a reference that I would make, right? So I'm playing with Dynasty now, right? And for the longest time, Dynasty was the best team, period. Not even it wasn't even competitive. They just beat the crap out of everybody for so long, right? And what ended up happening, and what always happens, is when that happens, you're forced to get better. And that inspires and creates more high-level play. And Dynasty went on that tear, and then guess what? For a long time, they didn't. Because for a long time, it was a lot of teams winning. You know what I mean? And that likely was because Dynasty was so good for so long that people were forced to show up, forced to reevaluate, forced to figure things out, And so I played on
excessive, dog. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
because
right.
We built that team.
Exactly.
We built that team to beat San Diego Dynasty. And then, and that's an infamous in that era. And that's, we beat the shit out of those guys when they were kids. They started beating the shit out of us, and we were like, we can't have this anymore. So and that's the arms race of all sports. And that's what's cool and special about the very tip top of what's happening. So I think that at least with the 10-man question is that also the same conversation we're having over there? I mean, look, I'm all for you guys having whoever the hell any of these pro teams want to have on their rosters.
Yeah.
But I'm not the president of the
honestly,
NFL,
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too, because when you think about the change that they made, honestly, I would argue that Infamous is in better shape now after the change that Tom is making to restrict the rosters than they were last year. Because now, you also got to realize that certain age limit and certain points, Infamous is an old, for the most part, there's a bunch of old, salty, total, veterans of the sport. And you're going to have to still find a way to beat those guys. Good freaking luck. Because now nobody's going to have access to bringing some youthful, a good amount of youthful talent. You know what I mean? So Infamous still has, and I would actually argue more of an edge now, because, Cat Factory is just not going to show up, and Diesel's probably just not going to show up. And those teams, honestly, had just as good a chance to win any of those events last year as Infamous. And now those teams probably just aren't going to show up.
I played on Cat Factory, so what are we going to do now?
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point. And so it's now you've just got 2 of those heavy hitting teams that could have easily won one of those events. Now they're just not going to show up because they can't literally fill their roster. So now you've got Infamous, who's going to play within the rules, whatever rules they are, but they still have some of the best guys in the game. But guess what? Now there's other great teams that aren't going to even be able to show up at all. So what's going to happen if Infamous does it again? I'm thinking these rule changes are actually going to make it easier for Infamous to dominate out there, in my opinion. But, we'll see what happens. But, I would love to keep playing.
Yeah. It'd be sad to see not out there in a 10-man. And now I was playing on Cat Factory, so I don't know what's going to happen for the 10-man.
Yeah, think about it. It's just
I know. I've been thinking about it. it's a different situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how things go
Yeah.
for 2022. We'll be discussing this more, I think, as we move forward. Last question though, before I let you go, and I do appreciate your open honesty about this move. I know it's been, it's obviously probably been torturous for you, but also I really do think that this is a really cool thing for everyone involved. Like I said, I think this is a good thing. I know it sounds weird, but I think this ultimately long-term will probably be good for X Factor, because next man up, somebody has to rise to the occasion and become the next Archie. It's going to obviously be good for Dynasty. Was there any like a specific moment or where it all kind of coalesced, or was this just like a slow rolling avalanche of thought? I mean, how did it kind of crystallize in your mind?
Well, actually, the first thought, and actually I wasn't exactly at all what I expected, but, I think I was telling you about, like, certainly prior to 6 months ago, when I envisioned my paintball career coming to an end, it was kind of one of those scenarios where, like, I just decided to not play anymore, but the team was still going to go on without me, X Factor, right? Because that's how synonymous, like, me being with X Factor has been for so long up until this point. And I was kind of coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't really enjoying myself as much as I used to, and as much as I want to, even for the amount of effort I put in, because, and this is what's super, I think it's still funny, but, like, people don't realize how much time and effort Ryan and I put into X Factor for the last decade straight, and, like, I talked to Ryan almost every single day about X Factor for the last 10 years, about what we could do to be better as a coach, as an individual, as a player, as a leader, as every part of it. We had conversations pretty much every single day for years. And honestly, some of them are conversations that we just keep going down to try to figure it out and try to master it and try to really influence our team as much as we could and try to, inspire people and figure out ways to talk to certain people and stuff like that, all with the intent to try to make our team better, and, like, people don't understand that in order to be the best, that's what it takes from some individuals within an organization. And we did that for a long time. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, because those conversations also made me who I am, and I'm really grateful for it. But at a certain time, you get to the point where, maybe you're not happy with your level of effort and what is coming back to you from that. And I started realizing that I was kind of ready to move on. And I thankfully have a lot of great friends in this game. And I called Alex Fragi, and this was, I think it was, I don't know, it must've been before Chicago, but I called him and I just straight up wanted to pick his brain about, one of the things I really respect about Alex and Ryan Greenspan's careers is that they stuck through everything, the good, the bad, the ugly with Dynasty. And I just picked his brain and I just said, hey, like, how did you never wanted to do something different, and he had, because that's, how it is, man. Everything's like this. You're riding the waves, there's always the ups and there's always the downs, and it's just, you're kind of riding them. Nothing's permanent, just like you said earlier, right? Which is very true. And, Alex was really masterful in his conversation, in that conversation. And he had a lot of wisdom, which I expected him to. And that's really why I called him. But at the same time, even though he told me, like, a lot of really good takeaways, at the end of it, he was like, you could just play with us and we wouldn't even need you to do anything. You could just show up whenever you wanted and don't come to the practices. Just kind of show up whenever you want to. It's cool. And he was joking around, but it kind of sparked an idea of kind of funny, like a funny idea that maybe carried a little more weight going forward for me. And again, when I was at that moment in time, pretty much ready to call it and walk and be okay with my career ending or coming to an end. It got, and don't get me wrong, I didn't end up talking to Alex about playing on Dynasty until after World Cup. But it was just a conversation that originally I was looking for guidance in walking away, and he kind of got me a little more excited about playing again. And, that's probably the first time I had thought about it, but I really didn't think much about it again until after World Cup, where I knew I was going to make a decision on whether I was going to retire or not. And, deep down in my heart, I knew where I should play if I was going to play some more.
Well, I thank you for your honesty, man, because that's always a blessing, because that's, that's the story probably most people don't get to hear. So I do appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I learned in my late adulthood from one of my younger sisters is a thing called radical honesty, and that's a really beautiful thing. But the truth, I mean, the bold-faced truth, usually reveals a lot of really great things. And when you're trying to sugarcoat stuff, or when you're not being completely honest about stuff, what you miss in the story is, the honest intent of where you are at, and, a lot of things come down to misunderstanding. And a lot of that stems from being clear and truthful with your intent. And it's something that I try to practice. I really do.
Well, man, thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck in 2022. I think it's a great story, knowing you for as long as I have. And I'm interested to see how the guys on X Factor are going to step up to take your place. And I think we're going to see some greatness there. I really do.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, I do want to say one interesting thought, and this is what I would argue is the hardest thing about going to play for Dynasty right now, is that there's no way, or not no way, but they've won back-to-back tournaments and back-to-back World Cups, right? And again, like, I'm going to go play for them, and I know everybody thinks like, oh man, Archie's one of the best and Dynasty's the best right now, right? And I'm just letting everybody know that the league is super competitive. It's going to be so much harder for Dynasty to have that type of a season. And don't get me wrong, we're all going to try our absolute best, but at the same time, it will be very hard. And I understand, and that's why it's very difficult to go to the winning team, because the hardest thing to do is to keep winning. It's easy to go to a team that's getting their ass kicked and do a little bit better, and you say, oh yeah, that's because I'm here now, right? It's hard to go to a winning team and say, well, shit, now we're losing, or, oh, we didn't win 3 events, so we didn't win another event in a row, so I guess we're worse now, right? And so it's funny, because I'm just letting people understand that these things are hard, and that's what's so impressive about them winning 2 events in a row and 2 World Cups in a row. It's fucking incredibly difficult to do. And we're going to keep trying to do it. And you know what? I might be the one that breaks the streak for him, but we also could go on a real tear. We'll never know. We'll see. But we're going to try our best, and we are going to enjoy that process. And that's really what this is about. So I'm really looking forward to it. I appreciate all the love and support. I've gotten like an incredibly immense amount of love and support on my phone the last few days. And it's really been a beautiful thing. And I've rekindled some conversations that I haven't had with some really special people, in my opinion, in a long time. And I'm really looking forward to being around, that Dynasty magic. It's going to be fun. So, yeah, we're going to be giving it a go.
I can't wait to see it, man. Everyone watch Dynasty, Archie Montemayor 2022. Again, we got 4 Sundays coming up, the story of this year. December 21st. And yeah, man, thank you so much for your time. Everyone out there, thank you so much for watching this crazy story that is pro paintball. And we got nothing but more of it coming at you here in the very near future. I'm Matty Marshall. See you guys next time.
To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4 to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies, with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, when you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
So hard they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets the crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.